Alrighty everyone, Not Cry came. I'm pretty sure you guys are having fun with the new region, the story quest Columbina. What come along with Not Cry is the new Lunar Bloom mechanics, which have been able to increase a lot toward Dendro reaction as a whole. Character that can work with Lunar Bloom has quite a decent number above. And one of the more important character that has been able to make use of this time around is technically our lovely Nilou. So yes, it has been a while since we talk about Nilou, and since she's got quite a nice buff from the recent Not Cry updates, I think it's a worth it time for us to look back into Nilou, as she's actually aging like fine wine and still an absolutely amazing character for us to look into. Loma and Flint, as well as so many other amazing Not Cry character, is coming pretty soon, and I know that many of you are trying to get them. So if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 25% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point, you can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. A 6.0 is the anniversary patch. Loot Bar is holding a special discount for the all-in-one bundle, and it's actually a pretty nice discount. Other than that, you will also be able to claim 15% coupon as well as 3% coupons for the rewards as well. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. Now, ever since Nilou was released, she has always been considered to be an absolutely amazing character, while provided that she is used in the right team, of course. Back when Nilou just arrived, obviously Dendro reaction is still very high up in the meta, while it dropped down a little bit since Fontaine, but Natlin, it almost completely dropped out of the meta. But Dendro is back up again, thanks to a very specific character, Lauma, which obviously we're going to be discussing her in depth in a bit. But anything that Nilou has been capable of, her strength in terms of providing your team bountiful cores, has always been really good regardless of the meta, because her team gameplay is one of, if not the easiest team for us to consider playing. For Nilou, Dendro Bloom team requires you almost no rotation. The only requirement is generally use her in a Hydro and a Dendro only team, so that you can make full use of the bountiful core mechanics, and therefore popping a tremendous amount of cores on the field to deal damage. So in terms of how Nilou gameplay actually does, I'm pretty sure most of us know how Nilou works, right? Most important thing is you fit her into a Hydra and Dendro team, and she will automatically convert Dendro cores into bountiful cores, and that is basically how Nilou Teams works around with. So I'm not going to be touching too in depth into that in this video, because there has been many past guides. So to save time, first off, let's touch on Nilou best weapons and artifacts build again before we touch on the more updated team comps, so that you're first more aware of how she's being built as a character. Basically, Nilou is all about having her HP to the maximum level, so that she can maximize her passive for bountiful cores damage. Now, generally speaking, her artifacts sets hasn't really changed too much over the years. Many of the time, she's still going to be using the double 2-piece set with Tenacity and Verukasha for the double HP increase. Therefore, you get a total of 40% HP scaling, because yes, most of the time she just wants HP in her build. Other than that, you can look into the 4-piece Verukasha Glow. It's decent on Nilou, but most of the time we're still going to be focusing on the 2-piece for her maximum 40% HP increase. And while if you want to have her to be on a bit of EM, then 2-piece Tenacity and 2-piece Skilled Dream, so that she deals a bit more with her bountiful cores, then EM is generally going to be fine on Nilou herself as well. But just to note, the priority on Nilou artifact build is going to be as much HP as you possibly can, so 3 HP main start on your artifact piece is generally recommended. Finally, if you can slot in a bit of EM onto her sub start, that would be great as well, because that's obviously going to help her do more damage. For Nilou's specific weapons, many of it still stays very similar as well, with her signature obviously still by far the best in slot, and it is undeniable how powerful this specific weapon is for Nilou. Not to mention, you can technically use this weapon on any other sword character that scales with HP and a sub DPS character like Furina for example. So if you are investing into Nilou, try to get a signature is very good. Other 4-star options obviously is going to be the Dog Hand, the Cypher's Moonlight. Those are going to be some of the better 4-star options, but they are locked behind gacha, so it might be hard to come across. Technically, one of the most free-to-play weapons out there is going to be the Iron Sting. It does increase her EM, so it's a bit lacking in the HP side, but that was the case before we hit Not Cry. Now after we hit Not Cry, the weapon craftable series in Not Cry, I just have to say, is pretty decent, and that's where the Serenity cores come in. You can technically go ahead and craft this. It would take a bit of time, but you do have the potential to craft all the way to R5, where it does give Nilou energy regen. Well, that's good because she does need that to use her burst, but other than that, at R5 you're getting a 32% HP increase, which is already pretty good. Now if you are in Ascended Gleam, that's going to be an extra 32% with a total of 64%. You can use this on off-field characters as well, and generally I'm feeling that this is technically made for Nilou. But the thing is that you do need 2 Not Cry characters on the team, so at this point if you want to max it out, we're only going to be having Lauma and Ino to be on Nilou team to get the maximum of this, which is not entirely bad considering that if you do have an invested Ino, I think that'd be fine, but we'll talk about that more into the team comp section. But do keep in mind, Nilou is having a really nice free-to-play weapons after a very long time of relying on more invested gacha options. And that overall is a Nilou build at the current point. There isn't too much of an update to her specific build, but Nilou's specific build has never been too important because the most important thing is how she works in her team. Even though Nilou only works in a Bloom team mostly, but her team over the years has been increased quite a bit with newly introduced Hydro, Dendro characters, and we're going to have to touch on the elephant in the room, which is obviously going to be Lauma, the newest character that bring Lunar Bloom into the game. Now before Lauma arrived, not just Nilou team, but most Dendro team really wants to have Nahida on their team because of all the Dendro application that she's got access to, EM increase, and a bit of sub DPS damage that she does. We barely had any other Dendro character that came close to Nahida in terms of Dendro applications and so forth. The only other things that we have are Baiju, Yao Yao mostly with a bit of Dendro application, and healing, which Nahida doesn't have access to, but if you do have her on the prototype Amber, then yes, Nahida can also fill in the spot. With the introduction of Lauma now, she's basically very much an updated version of Nahida. So basically, how does Lauma make Nilou better exactly? First off, before, traditional Bloom team has been lacking a bit. While usually traditional Bloom teams excels in AoE situation with Nilou bound to full cores, but they do struggle in a single target situation because of the inconsistent damage, especially when there is no crit scaling and also a bit of a pesky self damage from those core explosion. It does make it a bit more clunky to use compared to Hyper Bloom and even Version at times when it comes to solo bosses content, Spiral Abyss, those kind of content. However, Lauma fixes a lot of that by supercharging Blooms into Lunar Blooms with crit potential, which is basically a Nahida at a C2 level. Lauma has access to Pilgrim stacks from a burst that add flat EM based damage to Bloom, plus her passive lets multiple core crits. So obviously the synergy with Nilou passive is really nice, considering bountiful cores and Bloom team alone has already been exploding at a really nice number before. And one of the better Nilou Bloom team at the current point we do have is Nilou, Lauma, Nahida. Of course, Nahida and Lauma can still work together on the same team and they do really nicely. Finally, another Hydro character like Kokomi for healing and driving. Now, if you do want Moon Sign Ascended Gleam, then I know it's going to be a decent character, but she does require you to have at least at a C6 level. Plus, at that point, no character on the team is generally going to be the healer, so Lauma at a C1 level is going to be recommended if you are using an Ino. If you do have an Ino at C6 and Lauma at a C1, that specific team is generally going to be the absolute best Nilou updated Bloom team at the current point. While you're seeing me using a Furina in the background here, well, technically you can still use a Furina, but if she's at a C0 level, she's definitely not going to be recommended. My Furina is at a C3 level, which is basically obviously herself doing off-field damage by herself. So obviously it depends on account situations. So yes, at the current point, Nilou has had a pretty much updated team and she feels really nice to play around with. But there are a bit of some future predictions and further down the line patches not cry meta discussion that you may have to think about if you are looking for more of a Nilou future update. And meta-wise, is that when it comes to a bit of a Genshin power creep concerns, if we look into it, Nilou is still a decently nice character at the current point, but there is a strong sentiment that she will soon be outclassed or power crept by characters such as Nefer, who is going to be the latest Dendro DPS character that fully utilizes Lunar Bloom, and her Bloom specific team does not work with Nilou specifically at the current point in the beta. And further than that, her personal damage is absolutely really high, that if we're looking into future Bloom teams, Nefer Bloom team who doesn't actually work with Nilou actively probably is going to be out DPSing Nilou herself. Furthermore, if you're somebody who haven't got Nilou, there has been question going around where is Nilou still a character that you would like to look into, because many of the players have been saying if you have her, yes, you can play around with Nilou, she still does well, but you obviously don't need to pull for Nilou, because when it comes to overall best Lunar team with Lauma, Hyper Bloom team is generally still going to be the overall better team around to play in the meta right now, especially with what we call more of a randomized bloom limitation, unlike Hyper Bloom team building where the single electro unit that you've got on the team is going to be the character that triggers every Dendro course, so you can focus on to hyper investing them for consistent damage. Bloom reaction isn't always consistently being bloomed by one unit, meaning that you cannot focus leveling up and try to maximizing one character at a time, but you should try to always invest everything across your team. For example, if you're Baiju, Nilou, Lauma and Ino team, then every of those characters will have the ability to do bloom. So that's for those of you to think about for the free to play more side of the investment wise, though again it's still worth it to look into character future proofing, though Nilou has been around for quite a long time, so I'm really happy to see that she's been holding up really nicely. And even if we're thinking about Nefer, who is going to be the character that may be replacing Nilou Bloom in the meta in the future, I'm pretty sure Nilou Bloom team is still going to hold up to be a very decent team, because it's not like you always need to have the best meta teams out there to deal damage, but as long as you have a Nilou with a Lauma on her team, I think Nilou is still going to do very nicely. And that's where we're going to be looking into some of the more fun side of Nilou, which are some of her specific team comps that she works around with at the current point. So as we mentioned before, Lauma Lunar Bloom team is going to be the best. Nilou Lauma teams alongside with Nahida, Kokomi or Ino in that slot is generally nice. Other than that, you do have the options of Nilou, Ino, Baiju and Lauma if you don't have Lauma at a C1 level and you need a bit of a consistent healing on the team. So generally those are going to be some of the more Lunar Bloom teams that Nilou can work around with. However, even though Lauma has been great for Nilou, it's not like every one of us is going to be having or pulling Lauma in the current patch, so a team may not comprise of Lauma and that's still totally fine. Where some of the past Nilou team, for example, you can have like Nilou, Nahida, Kokomi, Dendro MC and Kole, those teams work really decently. Other than that, a more invested teams like Nilou, Nahida, Baiju and Furina is still working decently well, even though Furina, yes, her synergy isn't too entirely good, but the Furina sub DPS damage, I'm pretty sure it can make up for quite a bit of the loss of a synergy. For a bit more of a solo Dendro team, if you do have more of the Alhaitham, Nilou, Yelan, Kokobi kind of teams, those teams can work decently well. Other than that, if you are mostly free to play, then Nilou, Kole, Dendro Traveler and Barbara is still some of the teams that we can actually consider for an absolute free to play player. Now that being said, Nilou as a character, even though her maximum potential is locked behind Bloom teams, that doesn't mean she can't be used on other elemental reaction teams. And in the past, we have had teams such as Vaporize and Nilou, which works decently well. Obviously not going to be as well as her specific blooms, but if you want to play around with Nilou other than Bloom teams, you want to have her as the main DPS character, because Bloom team she's not going to be on field. Now for an on-field Nilou, it is going to be a Vaporize Nilou team. So for Nilou DPS Vaporize team, you can either, if you do you have a Furina on a Nilou team, then a 4-piece hunter set is okay, but overall a 2-piece set which have like a golden troop and a 2-piece wonder troop set, or 2-piece half of death with 2-piece tenacity generally are gonna be fine. Now Nilou DPS aside does requires you to have a bit more invested stat, because now not just HP is something that she wants, she would love to also have hydro damage bonus, crit rate, crit damage, also EM for more reaction, because yes, she is going to do Vaporize damage. So for the 3 main stats, you can go with HP Sands, Hydro Goblets, and then crit rate, crit damage circlets, and obviously try to get as much EM on the substat as possible. Weapon wise, some of the better ones are going to be the Primordial Jade Cutter, right? Crit rate really nice, and then also scale with her HP. Obviously the key still works, she scaled with it really nicely, but overall if you're more going to be toward a free-to-play side, then the Iron Sting is generally going to be the best free-to-play options, because it gives you a lot of EM statistics. Some of the better Nilou Vaporize team comps we've always had are like Nilou, Xiangling, Kazuya, and Bennett, those kind of teams. One of the better national Vaporize Nilou team comp that we've got. Or if you want to have a bit more of a more premium teams, you can have like Nilou, Yelan, Xiangling, and Kazuya. Now this team, Nilou is going to be doing a little bit less Vaporize damage herself, and since we have a bit more Hydro applications onto the enemies, with Yelan being on the team, Xiangling is probably going to be doing a lot more Vaporize damage herself, but overall it's kind of fine. Nilou on the field driving Yelan and doing her own DPS number is always kind of nice. So overall, if you are looking into Vaporize team, even though it's not really too common, you can still do those kind of team play. Now onto Nilou Constellation herself, one of the more important matters, because Nilou is the character that you can get free constellation from this time around. I've already discussed it before. If you love Nilou, yes, you can invest into a constellation. Her C2 is really nice, but yes, that is if you've already got her C1, because overall this year we can only get one of her constellations, so many of us like myself only get her to a C1. Even though C1 isn't really too good, it's kind of fine. It does move you a lot closer to C2, so that maybe down the line, if you want more investment onto Nilou herself, or you want to invest into her now, you can get Nilou C2. And I think Nilou C2 is still going to be holding up for a very long time, because that huge Dendro and Hydro resistant shred is absolutely insane for any Bloom teams. They all love it. So that's undeniable that C2 Nilou value is still holding up really nicely. Under constellation wise, yeah, I don't think we'll be discussing or touching on too much, right? C4, a bit more of energy solving, and obviously C6 is well flexing. It does allow her to do a really nice number on the field. That's when Nilou being on the field is really nice. But then again, the sweet spot is obviously just going to be a Nilou C2. So yes, up until this point in the game, ever since the release, I'd say Nilou has had quite a number of updated builds. And now with the introduction of Lauma, Nilou alongside with Lauma is just a chef kiss team to play around with, because the Lunar Bloom damage popping up on the field is phenomenal to look at. As I've discussed before, even in the future, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of power creeping in Genshin Impact. Nilou will still be one of my most favorite characters to play around with, because I love her as a character. Her dancing on the battlefield is absolutely beauty to look at every single time. Even though there is generally going to be power creep in the future, unless there's going to be a direct competition with Nilou like never again, any kind of Hydro and Dendro unit that supports Bloom team just like Lauma is, who knows, wink maybe Columbina in the future may be able to actually buff Nilou team again. So that's the nice thing about having Nilou as a character currently. I think with all the buffing in the future, she's still going to be able to have her team being updated. That is quite nice. So it's one thing that we have to think about the meta going forward, but the other thing is I think we can just still enjoy the game, play the character that is most favorite to us, because as newer character comes, they are still going to be having their updated teams, and you are still going to be able to deal very nice damage with them. So that, guys, I think are some of the updated information we've got toward Nilou build and guide at the current point. I hope that the video have been helpful to you. If you have any question, guys, leave it down in the comment section, and I or some other lovely Genshin players will get to you there. Again, guys, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on my future Genshin videos. With that, I wish you a super day, and I'll catch you on my next video.